The At Home Show.
Welcome to the soundtrack of Josh's brain. No matter what Josh is doing, there's always this tune in the background. For Josh, everything is an adventure. And yes, it does echo that much in here. For David, things are a little more classy, a little more dinner party-esque, a little more caviar, please. At least that's how I see it. What do you guys think? Live from the Green Room Studios, from the spacious property of Bates Nursery and Garden Center, 3810 Whites Creek Pike, it's the At Home Show with Josh Cary and David Bates.
It's all about me. You know that, right?
You noticed, he did put you out there first.
Yes, I mean,
because your name, of course, is first. Josh
top
Cary
billing,
and
yes.
David Bates.
Yes, but that music, that fun and frivolity means it's time for the At Home Show. It's a Saturday morning tradition coming to you here from the Green Room Studios at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Cary.
Good morning.
Good morning, Austin.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tyler.
Hi. Good morning.
And good morning, Michael.
Yeah, good morning. He didn't like my legend. He didn't like my Legend of Zelda backdrop there.
Was that what that was? Okay. Hey, folks, we're a landscaping home improvement show.
Yeah,
we've been doing this for a minute, so
yeah. We start off with the weather.
Yes,
and today is no exception. Today is the 23rd of October. Just a week away from Halloween Eve. So,
what are you going to be?
Going to be a week older, hopefully. Oh. Here we go. Today is, of course, Saturday, and it's going to be a really nice day today. Yesterday, we had clouds throughout the day. Only partly cloudy today. A lot more sunshine. 72 degrees, so warmer temperatures. Tomorrow, even warmer still. A high of 81 degrees tomorrow. There is a chance in the evening time. We got an echo somewhere.
No, that's
feedback,
me.
Feedback loop.
You saw
I told
me
you,
do
we're
this.
inside his head.
So, we do have a little rain moving in the evening hours on Sunday, but it's going to be a nice day throughout the day. Early morning rain Monday morning, and temperatures are starting to cool a bit. And you'll see as we go through the week, that trend kind of continues. Highs Friday, 57 degrees.
Stop.
So, hey, it's as though the one thing that always seems to happen. Now, maybe there are a few years that are exceptions, but there is a change that occurs in the wee morning hours between Halloween and November 1st. It seems like all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, the warm weather's over now. So,
It's got a calendar.
I got a calendar right here, and see what this says. Now here it looks pretty nice. So
Then it drops right back
if
off.
that means anything. But one thing we have not seen to this point in the fall season is really any frost or freezes. And typically, and I will talk about this through the show a little bit, we know our normal first frost days between the 15th and the 20th of October, and it hasn't happened yet, and it doesn't look like it's going to occur until November at this point. So theoretically we could have it here. If they're saying 44 on Sunday on Halloween, it could really make it to the upper 30s here. We just haven't seen it yet, but it's really nice, beautiful start to the day. 43 degrees here at the official weather station out at Bates Nursery. You can always check that out at the Weather Underground, or go to that page through the Bates Nursery website if you want to see what the weather's doing here, so you'll know, hey, I need an umbrella, I need a parka, I need sunscreen. There's all those things are out there.
You wear your sunscreen in the wintertime too, don't you?
Well, you know what? I have not ever been a sunscreen wearer.
Really?
No. But I do get checked for all the bad things, and it's, so I don't know whether I don't know whether that's good or not, but so far it hasn't been bad. So 615-499-6690. If you have questions about your use of sunscreen,
or not use
or
it.
or non-use of it, you could call and
Perhaps
leave a comment or a question. You can leave a text message there if you like, and you can. And it's not just on Saturday mornings while we're broadcasting live. You can do it anytime during the week, and we'll get those on the air. We also bring those in from our Instagram pages, and the capable Cary takes care of those. Good morning, Cary.
Good morning again.
And say hello to Austin down the way there. And we're glad to have you guys in here this morning. It's been a busy week at Bates Nursery. There have been many trucks.
So many trucks.
I mean, just truck. How many trucks, Austin?
Gosh, I don't know. I lose track now. 6, 7 trucks easy, but there was one specific one that kind of stands out, and that was our Isley truck, which comes out of Oregon.
It was exciting.
It had a lot of really probably the best looking crop of Japanese maples I think I've ever seen come out of the West Coast.
Is all the ones that ride down the aisle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most of which now have pink ribbon with sold tags hanging on them now. So there's still opportunity for folks to get those. But I will come out today. If you have desires in the specific Japanese maple, yes, we have sold a lot of them already. Yesterday was despite the cool, cloudy conditions, we were still quite busy. I expect today will be even busier. So come on out and see us today. And any of our capable staff of landscape professionals will be glad to assist you in making your selections and getting your fall landscape underway. So, Cary, you said earlier, I think it was when we were still off air, that you had I don't think you used the word plethora, but you did say there were a lot of questions. So,
yes, there are.
Why don't you serve one up? Make it a softball, because it's early in the morning.
Here we go. We'll start kind of small. I wouldn't say small, but easier. So this comes from KKW 426. Is now a good time to transplant butterfly bushes? Ooh, Tyler, that zoom in. Wow.
8:07. 8:07 is a good time to transplant butterfly bushes. If it's the time of day question, I take it they mean really time of year.
I think possibly time of year, but I could be wrong.
More likely. If they're not fully dormant, they will be soon, and we're at the stage now where that. I always like to tell people as a general rule, just no matter when you're doing the transplanting, is go dig the hole where you're going to transplant it to first. That way, and prepare that soil so that when you dig whatever it is you're transplanting up, be it a butterfly bush or whatever, you minimize the amount of time that it's out of the ground.
So you get a good tissue match and everything when you're doing that.
It has to do more with soil moisture and getting the air pockets settled out. But if you have that hole dug first, and if it's something really large, that hole might take a minute. Transplant it directly over to it, and then water it in thoroughly immediately. It doesn't matter how much it may have rained or not. You want to make sure and do that multiple times until it stops bubbling around the root ball, so you know that you've settled all the air pockets out of it. Talk to folks a little bit more about the importance of that, Austin.
Yeah, you have to have moisture around the root zone after you transplant. It's what you have to do. Now, I would say wait a little bit. You're right there. We're a few weeks away from full dormancy. So let the plant go full dormant. Let it drop its leaves. Let the frost settle in on it, and let the leaves drop. And then after that, when we can think about transplanting, and then move it quickly, and get it into its home where it's going to be, and then water it thoroughly, and you should have success next spring.
Yeah, this is the time of year that people really need to be thinking about it. So it's a great question, because we get, I think, too many people inquiring about, I need to transplant this or that in the end of March when it's already in full flush, and it's not the best time to be doing it. So you've got, as soon as we get the first frost or freeze, it's really going to be an excellent time from now all the way through February to get that done. So go ahead and kind of get your list made. My bride has got a list of a couple of things she's wanting transplanted, and
that's what you're doing today?
No, okay. I'm thinking they might need to be pulled out. They're getting really large. I've got some, and we've got a couple here in the studio of Blue Atlas, a Hortsman. I've got Hortsman Blue Atlas cedars that are ginormous. They've been in the ground for probably 12, 14 years, and they're 8-inch diameter trunks. I mean, they're huge.
Oh my goodness!
They've gotten gnarled and twisted, and they no longer look the columnar form that if you look behind Cary there's one.
Got her in the hair.
Yeah, she's getting
I just
tangled
got
up.
tangled in it.
So,
but they're so nice.
they are a beautiful plant, but time. And because that's just a regular Blue Atlas on the right, I believe. Is that correct, Austin?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Hortsman has a much more dense growth habit. It's a big difference as far as how they look.
But they're gorgeous.
They are gorgeous.
In any landscape, I think. So.
But the nature of conifers is they just continue to grow, and you can do some pruning to extend the time, but if you've planted them in a spot where it's questionable as far as how their spacing is around other things, sometimes the only option is to either transplant them or remove them altogether.
And they really don't like wet feet either, do they?
No, that's true with conifers in general. There are a couple of exceptions, but generally conifers are not wet feet lovers. Bald cypress, one of those real exceptions that they actually can just grow standing in water, but they are a deciduous conifer, which is kind of contrary to most people's thinking. They actually do drop their needles and flush back out in the spring, and they are considered to be a shade tree by many, but they are in fact a conifer. So 615-499-6690. Cary, what else you got for us over there?
I got one that I know Tyler will have some great input on because I've seen these banana trees that you have in your yard. It comes from C. Monette. What should I do with elephant ears and banana trees before winter? I know I cut mine back right after the first frost and then mulch them, but
It is, for me, about a yearly tradition now that every, towards the end of October, early November, and I call it right around the first frost, I just take a machete and whack mine to the ground.
you've got a
It's
great
great
video
fun.
of that.
Well, the good thing about it with the machete, if you get a good swing, you get them all in one shot. I mean, you go clean through it, and then they just stand there for a moment and slowly fall over.
Yeah, it's like you're in one of those cool old movies. It's like a samurai film or something, and you're like in front of it, and it's behind you, and you can just hear it slowly fall over.
Back in the day, when I lived in Hawaii for a year, I managed a nursery in a town called Waimanalo, Hawaii, and so we were clearing out a big area, and I don't know how many hundreds of banana trees that I cut down. I mean, they were like thickets where it's one after another. So that's
Do they push a fountain of water out of them?
I was about to say,
but as soon as you cut them, they start pushing up in the center. They'll be within an hour. They'll be 2 or 3 inches tall in the middle.
Yes, they're still doing their normal growth thing.
Oh yeah,
which leads to that extraordinary growth every year. But I actually this year thinned mine out because I was starting to get problems with mosquitoes. We just had mosquito problems in general in the area, and have basically thinned out a lot of them around the outside, so now you can see through the canopy, but before it was just a green wall.
It gives you a little more interest when you can kind of see through it, don't you think?
You get a lot
you
get a lot of pups off of those too, don't you?
Yes, actually, I can dig them off with a shovel and pot them up, and I mean, pup after pup. There's probably 30 to 50 a year that come off the tree. I mean, some of them I have to dig up, or that's just going to keep moving into my garden.
Do you see them in the spring or this time of the year, or all through the year?
Throughout the year, mostly in the spring.
Wow!
But there are some young ones that pop up in the summer too, and there's like just a horde of like children around the main big ones that grow up in the middle.
Horde of children.
At least they don't talk.
Talk about the weight of them, Tyler, after you cut the big ones. How heavy are they?
They are quite heavy, actually. They're really unwieldy, and I have to cut them into these wet logs that
They're not good for firewood, are they?
Negative. I got
if
to do
they
it for my
burn,
mom.
I would be.
You can't even put them on a bonfire.
No, my mother has elephant ear all around her. I mean, bananas all around her pool, and I've got to cut them for her every year, machete style, just like y'all were talking about. And we always take them down to the burn pit area. My dad's always insists on taking them down to the burn pit, and they just lay there through the whole winter. And he'll try to burn them. He'll keep on, and eventually, once spring and summer rolls around, we'll finally get that pile burned. But that the amount of water that they carry is insane to me.
Can you cook in in the ones that you're talking about? Because I mean, a banana wrapped.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yes, banana leaves. Yeah, you can use to wrap.
But you
up
don't
stuff.
use the stalk.
No, the leaf itself. But I mean,
Yeah.
I cooked a banana with like a mahi with some mango. Oh my
Hey,
goodness.
nice.
Now, Caroline, one of the
started
things
there.
you mentioned were also canna or elephant ears, I think is what you said. And my grandmother, she always had a huge canna bed out in the front yard with elephant ears, like 3 elephant ears in the center, and then it was the President Red cannas all the way around it. So every year it was really made a spectacular show. But her thing was every year, just as you said, after the first killing frost, she would cut them all down and she would just lay the tops over where everything was pointing inside the bed so that they use the foliage to actually mulch over the entire bed width.
And that's a great point, David. That's as after I cut them down, I mulch my bananas over. And that's why I cut them down as close to the frosty times as possible, because I don't want them popping back through.
And they will.
They definitely will. Because actually with that cold spell that we had last year, it killed quite a few of the existing stumps that I had, where the next year it would emerge and from that trunk and keep growing again. So I had quite a bit of dieback. I mean, it's not like it killed the overall mass of the plant. It's huge right now. But that is something to consider.
Austin, Mama obviously likes having the bananas around her pool. Do you see any downsides to having them near an aluminum pond, or she had an in-ground or an above-ground, or what?
No, she's got an in-ground pool with concrete all around it, and they're separated, and there's no way for them to escape, which is a good thing for bananas, because bananas can run and they can really kind of take off and take over. So hers are limited to where they can go, so they just keep popping up. That started with 6 individual little 4-inch bananas, like this tall.
And to not go too technical here, but are those Fargesia or are those Musa?
No, they're with mooses. They're the ones that, and they come back without it. Same ones Tyler has at his house, and they come back. God, there's, like I said, we started with six little bitty 4-inch pots, and now there's at least 50, 60 plants.
Wow.
Some leaves that are 6 feet long. I mean, literally.
How long have they been there?
This is its 5th season, I believe.
And
They just keep on trucking.
The other point worth mentioning as far as the timing goes is that while you do want to wait until after you've had the first cold spell, if you go way long after it's had several really hard freezes, you wind up with a mush
Pile.
I mean, it is terrible to deal with.
Yes,
So
yucky fingers.
There's a timing to it that you need to be paying close attention to. Once you get that killing frost or freeze on it, go ahead and get them cut down. You may get a little bit of regrowth like Tyler was talking about, but if you wait too long, it is horrible. It's like a slug, a giant slug that has died. It's just slimy.
Oh, and the innards are cold too.
Oh,
Cold,
yes.
sticky.
Close your eyes and have
That's
somebody.
a nice breakfast talk here. Okay, 615-499-6690.
You can use your machete and you can chuck the logs like you're at a fish market, and it's really great fun.
Pretend you're in Seattle.
Banana log chucking. Yep. Hey, wrap it up in newspaper.
All right, one
I'm
more,
done.
Cary?
All right. Yeah, we'll get one more in before we hit the rest a little bit later. This comes from Jess Likes Cake. Tips for making gardening more affordable. Plants can be expensive.
Well,
Boy, do I know that.
Yep. Okay.
Go. You talk, Austin.
All right. First things first. Let's talk propagation. So you can separate so many more things than you think you can. That's the first way. That's to actually get a plant off of other plants. So some things like grasses especially can be separated very easily. Now, if we want to switch gears on a different style of propagation, the use of seed. Y'all be amazed at how easy seed can be with tons of say perennial crops or annual crops or vegetable crops. That's how we used to always do it back in the day. It's just I don't know if we've gotten lazier or what it is, but we decided to use less and less seed. But seed packets are cheap. You can get about $2.99 for about 50, 60 seeds on certain things that are just as easy, and they just take a little bit more time and a little bit more effort. So
and invest and use a good soil.
Yeah, now one of the ways that is also worth mentioning is air layering, and for things that are difficult to root, many things are propagated in beds where they physically take a cutting, they wound it to dip it in rooting hormone, and then that's put in maybe a sand perlite mix to allow it to stay evenly moist but not wet. That wet conditions are not good for plants that you're trying to root as a general rule. Now, if you air layer, you get around some of the difficulties because while it's not difficult to propagate several thousand because you've had mist beds and timers set up and all that, just to do a few is almost impossible to some things, particularly conifers or maybe other difficult to root deciduous plants such as a crepe myrtle. Air layering is a far better choice simply because you form roots on the actual stem of the plant where you've wounded it and you put sphagnum moss around it and you wrapped it with aluminum foil. Now it takes a number of weeks for the roots to form, but once you get those roots formed on there, you simply prune it off and plant that into the ground.
And they're selling a little thing now on the internet, so it must be a good thing.
Oh, of course, everything on the internet.
It looks like like an old-fashioned, what silly putty comes in.
Right, the little snap around case.
Around case on it.
And that actually works fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that actually is one of the things on the internet that I believe is accurate.
Mm-hmm. Really? And it's funny this question came across because just 2 days ago, me and Cary had to separate. We had a customer come in and she had 3 fairly large bromeliads that had a lot of pups around them.
Wow.
Which are just little babies more or less around the main stem, and she asked us if we could separate them and repot them for her, which is something that we do here, and we don't mind doing that. So if you have plants that you're a little scared of or you've never done it before, simply bring them into us and let us look at them, and we'll even show you how it's done. That way you can do it next time and get at least 6 new plants off of each one of those.
Yeah, like 4 to 6.
So I separated them, Cary potted them up, and she came back and got them that day. She was very happy. So like I said, if you're a little nervous about it, but you think you can split something up, bring it in. We'll show you how to
Now, another thing that to further answer the question, I think kind of completes the answer as far as how to save money because plants are expensive, is to make sure that you give the plants the correct soil amendment when you are planting. And we often speak to customers out here who talk about how great their success is, and we have really worked hard at developing the Earthmix line of products to be reflective of that and to give things. And while we're segueing into that, we'll just go ahead and
I saw you sneak up in there and get that.
Talk about Earthmix for just a moment. And if you're looking to do well with plants, you want them to have all the things that Mother Nature naturally provides, and that's really what separates Earthmix Garden products from most everything else on the market. Is that it's 100% organic, it is sustainably produced. The only thing added to it are the things that Mother Nature already provides. That Earthmix products have more of them than you might find otherwise. Things such as endo and ecto mycorrhiza fungi. That's a mouthful to say, but those are things that are they're kind of like root extensions. They're these little micro transmitters that allow the exchange. The exchange of plants talk to each other. I know that sounds crazy.
I talk to my plants, and they always answer me. So.
Yeah, that's why you give yours names. But if you use excellent products such as Earthmix Landscape when you're planting anything, we rarely have folks who use that who fail to have success. It's one of those products that really gives you the great opportunity to do well with your plants. And the great thing about the area, it is available. Simply go over to earthmix.net and click on the Find Earthmix tab. And once you're there, all the little markers will show up around Tennessee, Kentucky, even up into Indiana and Ohio. So check out all, either click on one of those or put in turn-by-turn directions in the box on the upper corner. So check that out. Make sure you go over to earthmix.net and find out about all the great products. Landscape is just one of them. Earthmix Garden is kind of the flagship product, and it's the product that kind of does everything for a whole lot of applications. And of course, the one that Caroline will deal with mostly is Earthmix Proganics I, which is the sustainably produced indoor growing mix. It does not have peat in it. It has coconut coir in it, which what really makes that great is that it's a bit more sustainable than peat, and you don't get those aggravating greenhouse gnats, those fungus gnats.
Gnats?
You don't get those with it. So check that out. Either here at Bates Nursery or any of you see, there's a lot of great folks that are we really feel privileged to carry that product. So check it out, earthmix.net. And success in gardening begins at the ground level when you use Earthmix garden products. So there's that. We appreciate you giving us a moment to talk about having success with gardening.
Yep.
We really want to make it as no-brainer as possible.
You should.
Yeah, well, I mean, it shouldn't be. If you don't have success at it, you're not going to keep doing it.
Why mess at it if it's not any fun?
Right. It needs to be fun.
Well, and then you were brought up during the spot there that the Proganics I doesn't have any peat in it.
No.
And there a lot of folks think that peat moss is the panacea of the gardening industry. And you got to put it on your lawn. I was telling I was telling a story before the show came on. I was at a local store and was walking through to check out at the garden center just so I could see what was going on out there. And a couple of folks had they probably had 25 total bags of.
These are like flatbed
push carts of the big 6.5 cubic foot bales of peat moss, and
hurts me just to look at those. They're and as I mentioned to you earlier, that peat is one of the great qualities of it is very hydroscopic. It really absorbs a lot of moisture, and if you're trying to keep things evenly moist, it's very good from that standpoint.
But you wouldn't want to plant in it. No,
not purely in that. Not most things. And
but I asked the gentleman that was there because I said, you must have a huge garden. And he advised me that he was going to use it on his grass. He was going to spread it over the top of his grass.
Some people do that to help level their yards and stuff. They're doing like a lawn leveling.
Yeah, with peat?
Well, now, and this is not an uncommon practice for people in the upper Midwest. If you say you live in Minnesota or Michigan,
Minnesota,
it's readily available, and it's a lot cheaper than it is here because, as with all products,
it's a lot closer to Canada.
Yes, the further you have to ship it, the more it costs. So it's not an uncommon practice to use it as a means to hold moisture. It really doesn't have much nutritive value, if any at all. It's just a substrate. It's a means to add organic matter and to hold moisture. That's what it does, and you certainly can use it for that. I think most people, if they were going to do new lawn establishment, would probably go with some other product.
I would.
If you wanted it to be clean and weed free. You might consider one of the pelletized paper products, one of those things that you can put out with your seed, and when they get wet, they expand, and it does a really good job.
It mulches at the same time.
Some seed come with that already included with it, correct? So you can put those out. Or if you're not so concerned about perhaps having some foreign matter in there and you want it more economical, the use of wheat straw has been commonly used for years, and it's much more widespread in use for that in this part of the country.
But with lawn establishment, excuse me, Michael, but with lawn establishment, one of the tips is to always get a good soil test done. And, the peat is going to lower the pH, isn't it?
It will do that. Now, will it do it significantly? I doubt it seriously. But if you're already needing to lime because your soil test has told you that your pH is too low, then you are driving it lower still.
Okay. But as they dig this, it is not a renewable resource at all.
No, it's not. And they don't. And actually, for the most part, they don't dig peat. They vacuum it off. They have these huge vacuum cleaners that pull
little Mila
this much off the top of the layer, and as it dries, it'll just suck it right off the top. Now,
so you don't pick up the old Cro-Magnon guy that fell into the swamp 10,000 years ago?
Could be, but yeah, you probably just get them. You clean off the bones, and you know where to avoid.
I'm not telling anybody to do this at all. I'm just telling you what worked for me when I was doing some patching in my yard earlier in the spring. I've got a planer, and where I'd done some projects, had a ton of like wood shavings, like so thin it was basically like straw. I put that down over it, and it worked fine.
The wood was dry, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now that's almost like pine fines in a certain, just not quite as fine, isn't it, David?
Yep. But the thing of it is, if you're using things that have been composted properly, your pH issues and all the other things that could be problematic essentially go away, because the act of decomposition or composting neutralizes all of that, and you wind up with just organic material.
Because we've always recommended that if you use straw, that you, as soon as the grass gets established, we're going to try to rake it off as much as possible.
And that's where a leaf rake comes in very handy. Yeah. It goes from being an asset during the germination phase of seed to a liability once the seed has come up. So we're restarting our camera there. We're having a little issue with it this morning.
Hey, it's the old rule in radio. Just keep going. Ignore.
I am ignoring. But 615-499-6690.
Oh, since the camera's not on, we can pick our nose, right?
Go ahead, Cary.
No.
All righty. Cary, do you have another question?
Yes, I do. Let's see. This comes from HP Hips Robinson. How do I keep my olive tree alive when I bring it indoors in the winter? We talked about it a little bit last week. When you transition your plants inside, you have to adjust watering. So that's going to be a big thing, making sure you let the soil dry out in between waterings. And olive trees are going to need basically as much light as you can give them. South or west facing window or southwest facing window will be best. And they are going to naturally shed some leaves. So if it starts to drop leaves, it doesn't mean it's dying. It's just naturally going to do that when it switches environments and comes inside. It will reflush back out in the spring and summer when you take it back outside.
Yeah, and one of the things is it's so difficult for people when they're making that adjustment. I think it's more difficult for the people to adjust to indoors than it is for the plants to adjust. The plants are going to be okay with it, providing that the person that's caring for them is not over caring for them. And people tend to water things too frequently. It's not that you can put too much water on there at any time. It's the frequency. How often do you do that? And some things might need watering, twice a week. It's possible. Other things might only need it twice a month, depending on the day length. And of course, as we get more into the winter, the day length gets progressively shorter. And so there's
sad.
Right. So we offset that sadness by having plants in the house. By having
plants inside.
Exactly
one thing to note, again, that we did talk on last week, once you turn your heat on in your house, kind of depending on what type of heat you have, it is going to dry out your plants a little bit faster. I have propane heat, so my plants dry out really quickly, so I do have to water more often than I water my indoor plants in the summer because they dry out so quickly.
Yeah, and so there's no rubber stamp one size fits all answers with regard to use your digit. If you're fortunate to have one, you might even have one on both hands or different ones. Those are really good for checking the moisture level. The other thing you can do, which I actually prefer, is if you can't get a good test with your finger, if you know the relative weight of the soil, when it's wet, it's going to be a lot heavier than it is when it begins to dry out. And it needs to have that opportunity to dry between waterings. And so often people misdiagnose the need for water simply because they see some brown leaves happening like you were talking about, Cary, and they thought, well, it's dry, I need to water it. Well, it may just be reacting to light conditions, or it may be staying too wet, and that's why it's dropping leaves. So
Exactly. And if you have it, and some people keep them in a nursery pot, especially my bigger plants, I'll keep them in those. And you can see the dirt usually on the sides. So I'll usually pull that pot out and look at the bottom just to see if there's a lot of moisture in the bottom of the soil instead of the top, because that'll really let you know.
yeah, and the soil inside that nursery container will tend to just start to pull away a little bit as it starts to dry. So that also gives you a good indication. And one of the things, Austin, that you mentioned last week, and we'll talk about it more as we go through the winter months, is the need to look for pests. And as folks are getting ready to bring plants inside, they need to really look closely and go ahead and do some spraying before they bring them in, or else they're going to bring a lot of pests in with them that are going to create problems for things that don't currently have pests on them.
Yeah, exactly. So if you miss some pests before you bring them in the house, what you're going to see is that our houses are nice and warm, 72 degrees roughly, and insects can reproduce at that temperature. So if insects outside kind of lay dormant and don't really do anything through the winter, but if you bring them inside and you miss a few, say scale insects or some mealybugs, you're going to start seeing those numbers start to rise. So we need to, like we said last week, and every week we tend to talk about this a little bit. It seems like we need to make sure we clean up those plants before we bring them in. If you need to spray. If you don't, be organic and just wipe them off, clean them up, and then you'll have a much better looking plant through the wintertime.
Very good.
All right. Cary, you got one more for us?
Actually, Cary forwarded some photos.
Yes.
Is there an order for these, do you think? Or
Well, it's just 2 pictures. It comes from Bill Hayes, Nashville Off-Road. He asked, my Bette Midler and other roses I bought a couple years ago are reaching for the sky. Oh, sounds fancy. Would 3:30 today be a good day to cut them jokers back?
let's call a name out here. That's Buffalo.
Oh, yeah.
So, but there is one, and if we're coming up, well,
Is it going to happen?
No signal. Are you on the right? Are you plugged in? Oh, I saw that move. I think you might have a connection here in just a second. It could happen.
Oh, okay.
Drum roll. There we go.
And we'll bring them up.
With all the muting, Michael, that goes on
I know,
after we go on the air.
Hey, you do what you do,
Technically challenged. It's okay.
That's a good looking rose.
It really is.
I mean, it's healthy for sure. It's getting big. I mean, yeah, sir, if you wanted to cut it back now, it's not, just to clean it up or just shorten it, that's totally fine to do now. To do your total pruning, though, probably wait till it goes dormant like we talked about, and you're going to pick those green canes that look the best, that have the most vase shape, if you will. So we're going to cut those down.
The what?
What's that?
The vase.
What he's talking about, you want to remove canes that are crossing each other or growing too close together. Yeah, you want that to have kind of an open, symmetrical structure to it. The best you can. It doesn't have to be perfect.
You might want to get that ivy off of the arbor too. So I don't know what's going on there, but that is a beautiful one. My goodness, do you have to winter over them or put the cones on them like they used to talk about?
No. No.
Most of, and is Bette Midler a shrub rose or is it a?
I think it's a climber. I want to say it's a climber.
Well, and climbers like shrub roses are very tough. There's not much you have. The only thing that, as Austin alluded to, was cut those long branches back off and get them out of your way. And I kind of come down on the side of when you're going to cut them severely, like if you're going back near the ground, wait until the worst of the winter is past and then prune them off, and then you're going to see, particularly like things like shrub roses, knockouts, they're going to be pushing out new growth and breaks in February. I mean, they just are the most ambitious growers in the rose world there are. So.
Well, this is it's a gorgeous setting there, and here's another view of it. I guess from the other side, and it's a monster.
Yeah, it's certainly happy. So it's you're not going to hurt it by doing much to it. So yeah,
additional structure if it's a climber. I mean,
you can. Many folks do. They tend to grow fast and long, so otherwise they're going to do precisely what you see in that picture, where they're going to be growing out and start going down towards the ground.
More drifty looking.
Yeah, so it might be well to consider some structure for that, and that way you'll be able to keep it up and keep it off of the other plantings.
He could
around
probably
it.
come up with some rebar and figure out a way to do something like that.
Yeah, it would give him that familiar look to him, where that concrete reinforcement.
6,
look.
10, 10 rolled out.
Yeah,
there you go.
There you go.
Concrete wire, folks. Concrete wire.
Hey, you know what's fun? Real quick, David talked earlier about air layering. If you take that rose and you got a long stem like that, and you can bend it all the way down to the ground, take it down to the ground, make a little snap in it. You got to physically break it.
What we call a wound.
Make a wound, and then put dirt on top of it and keep it placed down towards the ground. That'll root, and then you can harvest that and plant it elsewhere. So that's a natural way to air layer.
Yep.
Wow.
All
Impressive.
kinds of things happen in this plant world that we get to deal with.
And Peppermint Patty won't step on.
Did you have another photograph that get you taken care of?
That is image 2. So.
Okay, well, if we can go back to input 1 then, Tyler, and then we'll briefly discuss. Let's see if I can get we have to make adjustments here when we go from one screen to the next. So we'll see if we've made that happen, and we have. It is the miracle of technology. We are going to talk for just a moment here about the place where we all are today, Bates Nursery and Garden Center. And we always have a lot of things around the studio here on Saturday mornings, be it indoor, outdoor, broadleaf, conifer, perennials, ornamental grasses, you name it, we carry it at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. As Austin was talking about earlier, we brought in a lot of truckloads this week, and the one that really gained, or actually a couple that gained quite a bit of attention, the Isley truck always is a showstopper. And Monrovia, of course, a lot of the smaller conifers we get from Monrovia, and we have an excellent selection of not only the products, but we have the expertise to help you find the right plant for the right place the first time. We try to help you take the guesswork out of it so that you can have lasting happiness with the placement of your plants. It's the definition of a weed is a plant out of place. So we don't want you taking these plants and putting them in a spot that turns them into a weed. We're going to help you to figure out where to go. And one of the things that Austin has talked about a number of times is the use of what are interpreted often as dwarf conifers, when actually they're not dwarf conifers. So those are little bits of information or things that are important for you to pick up and learn about. Now, this week in my newsletter, and if you're not subscribed to that, I sure invite you to do that. That's In the Garden with Bates Nursery. If you go to batesnursery.com, it's just right below the top panel there. You can subscribe there if you like. And if you get to a point that you no longer want it, you can unsubscribe. And we don't share your information with anyone. It's just you and me, and I try to talk about things that are timely, or sometimes
it's the best blog out there.
Sometimes, and we thanks again to all who voted us. For the third year in a row, we've been voted the second best local blog. So we're number.
I want to recount.
We're number 2. We try harder, to borrow a phrase from some other advertising world back in the day. So you can sign up for the newsletter and get current information. And on this week's news, which is down here at the bottom of the page, says, "Where's Jack?" We talked about the fact that we have not seen really any frosty or freezing weather yet, but what we have seen is a lot of Japanese maples. And you can either go to our search box and go to trees and then go to the Japanese maples link, or I have provided one for you right here in the newsletter. You just click on that and it shows you the 3 different groups of Japanese maples, and on any one of those, the variety of cultivars that we have available in either the miscellaneous or on the dissectum variety. So there's a lot to choose from when you're looking at Japanese maples, and we have a selection that is outstanding.
I'm going to look as soon as we get off the
you can just see there's a little scroll down of some of the varieties we've got. So come out and see us at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. We are conveniently located a mile north of Briley Parkway at exit 19 on Whites Creek Pike, and that's just minutes from Rivergate, Opry Mills, Nashville West, downtown Nashville, and I promise you it's worth the drive from anywhere. So no matter what you're looking for in gardening supplies and expertise, we have you covered here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center, where for 18 years we have been voted the best nursery and garden center by the readers of Nashville Scene. We are appreciative of that honor, and we really do our very best to deserve that honor. So we try to earn it every day. Come out and see us, Bates Nursery and Garden Center. We're coming up on 90 years here, beautifying Nashville since 1932. So sneaking up on that, my grandmother started the business way back in the day. So check it out, batesnursery.com, Bates Nursery and Garden Center. And thank you for letting us talk about that for just a moment.
615-499-6690. That's the number to jump in.
Now, Cary, I know you said you had a bunch of questions. And
we still have more. Do we want to keep going?
Sure. Let's see what we can get through here.
Okay. I'm going to combine two together because surprisingly they're about the same subject.
She's editing.
I'm editing.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Very
Editing
good.
live.
Yes, that works.
It does for me. So from Aaron Bloom as well as Sunrise Faith, they ask about how do you cut back iris and when to do it, and how low do you go?
Go, Austin.
Take them all the way back, and you can once again wait till dormancy. So they're gonna take a hit from a freeze and a frost, and you're gonna see them looking rough. They're gonna probably lay down on the earth and just look sad. So that's whenever it's time to cut them back. Honestly, though, irises are probably the toughest little plant I think I've ever seen in my life. I mean, if you cut them back right now, you ain't going to hurt them. They're going to come right back in the spring and bloom and be just fine. Make sure you give them enough sunlight to bloom properly. I've got some that I can tell the previous homeowner just decided to kind of throw some off into the ditch line, and they're off in the woods, so that's very, very shady. They always come up green, and they're still alive right now, but they have not bloomed since I've lived in the house. So make sure your location's sunny, and you'll get a nice bloom from those. So honestly, irises are cake. Easy.
Yeah, and one of the things that is the most important thing I think with iris is the people who really enjoy them and the people who are successful with them take the time to thin them, and because the tubers crowd each other out, and when that occurs, they don't get enough nutrition to be able to produce the numbers of blooms they would.
And the beards all get mixed together.
Well, I mean, you just don't get that great show of color like we love to get on those. So you need to be able to dig those out and thin them, and that gives you. We're talking about saving money on plants earlier. Yep. That's a great way to share or expand the beds you already have at your house.
Austin, talk about the what you have right in front of you. They're gorgeous.
You like that?
Yep. Well, I mean, I have some of the blue one, but I can't recall the name of it.
Blue Star is the blue one, and that's one that we commonly carry and usually always have. It's a good little dwarf juniper.
It actually is dwarf.
Yeah, it actually is. Yeah, it's only a little 2x2 grower, maybe a little bitty shrub, but it's got really good blue color in the early spring, especially. Now, this other one that I got is called All Gold Juniper, and this is an Isley plant, and I believe they specifically grow it. I'm thinking about buying 3 of these today. I've got a little grouping I need. So a little, and that's ground cover juniper. So it really hugs the ground, and it just runs left or right in all directions, and it just makes this carpet of gold. Now, the one thing about this one that it mentions is that this one supposedly from Isley holds its golden color through the winter way more so than any other juniper does. There's a lot of things that are golden through the growing season. There's a lot of things that go kind of off golden in the wintertime. So
bronzy looking.
Bronzy, yes. Arborvitae is especially prone to that. This juniper is supposed to stay the most gold through the whole wintertime. So I think I'm going to give it a go. I got to have it. Full sun for sure.
Well,
that keeps the golden color.
And that's actually how we find out things. It's one thing to read a tag, and the tag gives you a lot of good information, but the tags are printed generalized. That is to say that maybe they're grown out in Oregon.
Generically specific?
Well, they can't really put information on there that is really applicable everywhere. So sometimes the growth habit exceeds or doesn't get close to what it says, depending on where you are in the country. So for us to have that best information, we can plant these things ourselves in our own landscapes and observe them over the course of some years, and then you're able to make a confident recommendation based on actual local experience.
Well, and that was talking earlier about your Horstman Blue Atlas cedar. That tag certainly says it's supposed to be a dwarf-ish tree by the tag.
Not me.
And
that was me.
Okay. We heard those voices from the ether out there, but yes, the conifers can get large, particularly if you get them in a happy spot.
Yes, for sure. But I think I'm going to try this golden juniper. It's too pretty for me not to.
Yeah, you need it.
I know. I do too.
What else you got, Cary?
All right, our final question comes from Aaron Bloom, who also asked a question about the iris. What do peace lilies like? Mine is not happy at the moment.
Well, they like peace. What they like.
They like peace.
If you've got a lot of tension in the household, they're not going to do well. Is that what we should conclude from that?
Yeah, I think you just answered it. I mean, there you go.
Then there's the cultural things also beyond the tension in the house. What else do you recommend?
So I would recommend, most importantly, or I mean, they're all pretty equal, but soil, which David talked about earlier, our Proganics I, the earth mix that we have, is amazing, and it's what I use for most of my houseplants. You do want a good soil. Like a year ago on the show, I did kind of a test. I had 2 different blue star ferns in just kind of a big box store soil. I don't even remember what it was, compared to our Earthmix indoor Proganics I. And the amount of growth that I got on one fern compared to the other was insane. So it does make a big difference what you are putting your plant in. Peace lilies do like indirect light. They don't need to be in any full sun. Especially hot afternoon sun is really going to hurt the plant. They like to be pretty root bound, so they do need to be in a fairly small pot. I actually have some peace lilies in here. I'm going to slide
that over. There you go.
It's going to hide me. Oh, I can't see him anymore. Now the plant's talking. So if you notice, this is a sensation. It is a larger variety of a peace lily. It's real cool. But if you notice how small the pot is compared to the plant, this is a perfect size.
Now, does that cultivar bloom as well?
It does. So it's going to shoot out like 1, maybe 3 bloom spikes that are going to be a lot larger than just like the standard peace lily that you see.
And the good thing about spathiphyllum or peace lilies, if you prefer, is that they are very good about telling you when they need to be watered. If it's standing up and looking like that, that plant is saying, don't water me. Don't water me. Well, when you start to see the tips of the leaves start to droop over, and then you come back an hour later and they're drooped over even more, the turgor pressure, as it is known, is dropping in the plant. That means it's wilting down and it needs to be watered, and then you'll see it quickly stand back up.
We have a cool video on our Instagram page of a time lapse of that Tyler put up of a peace lily.
Yeah, and I'm not sure there's any other plant that can wilt as hard as peace lily and then still respond after you water it.
Hardly fern.
It can lay down.
Yeah,
totally.
That's not good for them to do.
No, it's not good for them,
but they can.
And they really can. Yeah, I mean, we have tons of plants we have to deal with, and every once in a while you forget to water one or something gets missed or whatever, and then you come back a couple hours later and you see a peace lily that's literally laying down. Give it some water, it will perk back up.
Yeah, what you'll find quickly is when that happens is there's going to be some leaves that'll shut off because there's some damage. The plant can't quite support all of that foliage that was on there. It's had to, as a self-protection mechanism, shed off some stuff in order to survive. And so that's not unusual if you allow that to happen.
And if a peace lily looks bad, like it's been looking bad for a little while, it's almost 100% it's being overwatered. We need to let it dry out a little bit in between, because
it will tell you.
Yeah, they don't want to stay super wet.
No, they really don't, because they'll go yellow. The tips will go yellow, and it just has this overall yellowish cast. It's not green and perky. So yeah.
Well, and you'll notice like the leaves towards the base that turn yellow will be kind of mushy near the stem, and it gets kind of nasty. One thing to note while we're talking about watering a peace lily, their leaves are really sensitive to chemicals found in tap water. So if you are watering with tap water, really anything, you do want to avoid pouring that water on top of the leaves and getting it down on the inside of the plant. That will cause problems. So water around the base. They also like to be watered from the bottom, which is kind of fun. So you can fill a saucer, leave it sitting in there, give it like 30 minutes to wick up all that water, and then dump off the excess water.
Just let the water sit in a pitcher over 24 hours, 48 hours. Just let it go. Get the chlorine out.
Yeah.
We've had a question on the Facebook page from our good friend Jack DeVrumen from the Marlboro Bulb Company. He's saying we're talking about bearded iris. What about Dutch iris?
Oh, well, of course, Dutch iris are a subject
near and dear to his heart, for sure.
With a name like DeVrumen, you don't have to guess where he's from. And he might have had relations to some of the Dutch masters back in the day. I'm not talking about the cigars. I'm talking about the painting.
The painters?
The painters, yes.
Okay.
What you got to share about Dutch iris?
Honestly, I don't think there's much difference when it comes to what you're going to do with them. It's going to be the same way. Keep them off of each other, not too tight, and separate them when they're dormant, and treat them the same way as you would a regular iris.
Yep, they need sun.
Yep.
They, if they stop blooming and they look good otherwise, it may be because your trees have grown up around them and are getting them overly shaded. So get that sunlight on them. And Jack, we need to get you back on the show.
You might want to order these from Marlboro Bulb Company too.
Well, you can do that.
Yeah.
You can go out to Marlboro Bulb.
.com.
Yep. So there you go. Check that out. Speaking of .coms, we're going to talk just a minute about BatesNursery.com and going down the page just a bit to the Bates Nursery Botanical Boot Camp. And this is one of the areas that Tyler is he's kind of orchestrates all of that. There's a lot of course, Cary and Austin are both highly involved in that, as are others. We've got my newsletter this week. I'll go ahead and give you a little preview on them. This is the Halloween edition. Last year, Cary and Ben put together a special little video about the Halloween season in plants. And is it this coming week, or was it last week that the Adam's Dungeons and Dragons episode came out?
It was just this Thursday.
So you can check that out.
Get a lot of hit points.
So yes, you can click on the Bates Nursery Botanical Boot Camp link on the Bates Nursery site. Click on that and just scroll down the page there, and lo and behold, it'll tell you Little Shop of Horrors 2 coming up.
Spooky.
So that is coming up this week, and of course all manner of other things, whether it's fall bulbs or Adam's Dungeons and Dragons. I will put links in this week's newsletter so you can go directly to those. You want to check that out. Also, I'm going to put a link in there to Adam's book. Yes, we've got a couple of authors here, and I'm not talking about me. Adam Chapman's one of those who has a book out, and it's about, for those of you who are interested in Dungeons and Dragons and the gaming world and all that, he has a book he has written on that. You going to give us a little preview? The Folly of Hunting. There you go. The Folly of, by William W.A. Chapman, also known as Anab.
Awesome Chapman.
Wicked Awesome Chapman. There you go. The Folly of Hunting. So we'll be featuring that. Look, a link to that this week.
Let me see. Okay.
It's a self-published book right there, so
No kidding.
careful with that. So anyway, Adam's that's just first edition of his trilogy. So that's quite a bit. That's 30,000 words, más o menos, right there. So it's going to be a long version. So anyway, check that out. We'll be covering all those items this week in the Garden with Bates Nursery newsletter. So
just making an announcement and a slight little teaser of November. On the 3rd, we have La Croix, which is our fancy term for a Q&A about anything and everything plant. We're going to do live.
And we're going to do it the first Wednesday of every month.
So, and that's a great opportunity for folks to get on live and be able to interact your questions in real time. This is the time of year where people start moving indoors, and that makes for fun engagement. And it's a little different way that, although we enjoy this variety of engagement, it's really good when we can get to do it one-on-one, and you get to talk about the things specific at that particular moment.
Very good. Very good. Authors.
We got all kinds of stuff going on here at Bates Nursery. When you got
We'll get Michael to read it. Yeah, he could put it on digital form.
Michael,
I could.
Yeah, I don't know if Mr. Chapman can afford him or not.
Michael, can you read the foreword?
The forward?
Or whatever it is. Isn't that the little blurb about the book? Did he put one in there?
It's pretty long.
It's
What
pretty
kind of
long.
story?
I'll tell you, I'll read the back.
Okay.
That's what I
I'll
was
read the
talking
back.
about.
It says,
back.
the back says, in the middle of it all, a furbolg
Furbolg.
Furbolg in a halfling.
It's easy for you to say.
and a halfling go hunting, and soon find that they, along with a roguish wizard, a newly anointed priest, and a young apprentice, can become the difference.
Dum, dum, dum.
The difference.
Then it says, W.A. Chapman lives with his wife and 2 children in southeastern United States. When not working or writing, he can be found in the garden, homebrewing a batch of beer, or attempting a TPK at the gaming table. I don't know what that is.
Well,
I believe it's a total play or kill or something like that.
Oh, nice. That sounds cool.
I think Adam might correct
So
me
then,
later.
well, maybe we'll get more understanding.
By the way,
about that.
Dungeons and Dragons is still huge in the world.
Total party kill. That's what it is.
Total party kill.
For a dungeon
Ooh.
master.
Man, that's what they called me in college.
That was Buzzkill. That was what that was.
Oh, here he comes.
You can't make the same joke about me that I made about myself, Josh. No, you didn't. No, you didn't
You
improve
just
it.
reinforced it.
I improved it, actually. That's what it was. All righty. I tell you what, folks, it's been a fun show. Thank you for participating via Instagram and on the Facebook page. You can go out and find us. We're on YouTube. Go out there and like and subscribe.
Leave a question anytime. The number works 24/7.
Yeah, 615-499-6690. Hey, folks, for everybody here at the At-Home Show, we appreciate you being here, and we're going to invite you back next Saturday morning for the pre-Halloween edition Inventory Day At-Home Show. We'll see you then.